The Guardian just dropped a nuclear bomb on Boris Johnson, and this story is absolutely massive. We're talking about the Guardian's investigation revealed how Boris Johnson traded PM contacts for global business deals, and folks, this is corruption on an industrial scale. Over 1,800 leaked files have just exposed how your former prime minister has been running what can only be described as a for-profit corruption empire, using taxpayer money to fund his private business dealings with dictators and billionaires. If you're new here, I'm Andrew Meet Rich. I used to work inside a state-run media outlet, saw how stories were twisted to fit the narrative, and I walked away. Now I'm independent, I speak freely, and I tell you what really matters. And what really matters right now is this. Boris Johnson has been caught red-handed, selling access to government contacts, lobbying foreign dictators, and pocketing over £5 million in speaking fees while you, the British taxpayer, subsidise his private office to the tune of £182,000. This isn't just unethical, this is a systematic betrayal of public trust. Let me break down what these leaked files reveal, because this is absolutely staggering. The Boris files, that's what they're calling this trove of evidence, show Johnson lobbying a senior Saudi official he met while Prime Minister, asking him to share business pitches with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Yes, that Mohammed bin Salman, the same guy who ordered the brutal dismemberment of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. But wait. It gets worse. Johnson received over £200,000 from a hedge fund after meeting Venezuela's dictator Nicolas Maduro, despite previously claiming he wasn't paid for that meeting. So not only was he taking money from hedge funds connected to one of the world's most oppressive regimes, he was lying about it. And here's the kicker that should make every British citizen furious. While Johnson was Prime Minister, he held a secret meeting with Peter Thiel, the billionaire founder of the controversial data surveillance company Palantir. Months later, guess what happened? Palantir got a lucrative contract managing NHS data, your health data, handed over to a private American surveillance company after a secret meeting. If you're finding this as outrageous as I am, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going deep into this corruption rabbit hole. But the audacity doesn't stop there. During the height of the COVID pandemic, when millions of Britons were locked in their homes, when families couldn't visit dying relatives, when small businesses were being destroyed by lockdown rules, Boris Johnson was hosting dinner parties. The files reveal he hosted a dinner for a Conservative peer who had financed the lavish refurbishment of his Downing Street flat, just one day after the second national lockdown came into force. So while you were following the rules, while you were sacrificing to protect public health, Johnson was breaking his own pandemic restrictions to wine and dine the wealthy donors who were bankrolling his lifestyle. This is the definition of one rule for them, another rule for us. Now here's what makes this even more infuriating. Johnson established something called the Office of Boris Johnson just 1 month after leaving Downing Street. This limited company has been the vehicle for managing his commercial empire. And guess who's been paying for it? You have. Through something called the Public Duty Costs Allowance, British taxpayers have been subsidizing Johnson's private business operations to the tune of 6 figures annually. This allowance is supposed to support an ex-prime minister's public duties, not their private money-making schemes. But Johnson has been using taxpayer funds to pay staff salaries in his private office, while that same office manages his globe-trotting speaking career. Between October 2022 and May 2024, Johnson pocketed approximately £5.1 million for 34 speeches. Think about that for a moment. £5.1 million. That's more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime, and Johnson made it in less than 2 years by monetizing the contacts and influence he gained while serving as your Prime Minister. Each speech typically earns him hundreds of thousands of pounds, plus generous expenses for first-class flights and 5-star hotels for him and his staff. This isn't just about money, though the money is obscene. This is about the systematic corruption of democratic institutions. When former leaders can immediately cash in on their government contacts, when they can lobby foreign officials they met in office, when they can use taxpayer funds to subsidize their private business operations, democracy itself is for sale. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think should happen to politicians who abuse public trust like this. And if you want to support independent journalism that exposes corruption like this, consider becoming a channel sponsor. The Guardian reports that these leaked files have echoes of the Greensill Capital lobbying scandal that engulfed David Cameron. Remember that? Cameron was caught lobbying government officials on behalf of a financial company that later collapsed, taking taxpayer money with it. Now we're seeing the same pattern with Johnson, except this time the scale appears to be much larger. What we're witnessing is the complete breakdown of the so-called revolving door rules that are supposed to prevent former ministers from immediately cashing in on their government connections. These rules exist precisely to prevent what Johnson has been doing, lobbying contacts he developed while in office, using government relationships for commercial gain. Johnson was specifically reminded of these prohibitions by an official watchdog on the very day he left Downing Street. He was told explicitly that he couldn't lobby foreign governments or commercial organizations using contacts developed while Prime Minister. Yet the leaked files show that's exactly what he's been doing. The files were obtained by Distributed Denial of Secrets, a US-registered nonprofit that archives leaked documents. While they don't know the source of the leak, the fact that this data exists raises serious questions about security at Johnson's private office. But here's what really gets me angry about this whole situation. While Johnson has been jetting around the world in first-class luxury, collecting speaking fees from whoever will pay, ordinary Britons have been struggling with a cost of living crisis that his policies helped create. Energy bills through the roof, food prices skyrocketing, public services crumbling, but Boris Johnson is doing just fine. Thank you very much. This is the same Boris Johnson who promised to level up Britain, who claimed to represent the forgotten working class, who said he would drain the swamp. Instead, he's become the swamp, a walking embodiment of everything wrong with the political class. What makes this story even more significant is that The Guardian is the only UK media organisation known to have viewed this trove of leaked documents. That tells you something about the state of British journalism, doesn't it? Where are the other newspapers? Where are the broadcasters? Why isn't this front-page news everywhere? The answer, I suspect, is that too many media organisations in Britain are themselves part of the establishment that benefits from this revolving door corruption. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. Johnson's deals include arrangements with the Daily Mail and GB News, media outlets that have consistently supported Conservative politicians while attacking anyone who questions the system. It's a cozy relationship where politicians provide access and favourable policies, while media organisations provide favourable coverage and lucrative contracts. This is why independent journalism matters so much. This is why channels like this one exist. We're not beholden to political parties or corporate interests. We can tell you the truth about what's really happening, even when that truth is uncomfortable for the powerful. The leaked files span from September 2022 to July 2024, covering nearly 2 years of Johnson's post-Downing Street activities. But some documents date back to his time as Prime Minister, suggesting that the planning for his post-political career began while he was still in office. That raises even more questions. Was Johnson using government time and resources to set up his future business empire? Was he making policy decisions with one eye on his post-political profit potential? These are serious allegations that demand serious investigation. But don't expect that investigation to come from the Conservative Party or from most of Britain's political establishment. They're all part of the same system, all benefiting from the same revolving door arrangements. Today it's Johnson. Tomorrow it might be Rishi Sunak or whoever comes next. This is bigger than just one corrupt politician. This is about a system that allows former leaders to immediately monetize their government service, that uses taxpayer money to subsidize private business ventures, that treats public office as a stepping stone to private wealth. And it's not just happening in Britain. Around the world, we're seeing the same pattern. Former politicians cashing in on their government connections, using their official roles to set up lucrative post-political careers, treating public service as a business opportunity rather than a public trust. The Boris files should be a wake-up call for everyone who cares about democracy and accountability. If we allow this kind of corruption to go unpunished, if we normalize this abuse of public trust, then we're essentially saying that democracy is for sale to the highest bidder. Johnson didn't respond to multiple requests for comment from The Guardian. Of course he didn't. What could he possibly say? How do you defend the indefensible? How do you justify using taxpayer money to subsidize your private corruption empire? The silence speaks volumes. This isn't a misunderstanding or a bureaucratic mix-up. This is systematic, deliberate abuse of public trust for private gain. Johnson knows exactly what he's been doing, and he knows it's wrong. The question now is what happens next. Will there be consequences? Will Johnson face any accountability for this behavior? Will the system change to prevent future abuses? Based on past experience, I'm not optimistic. The British political establishment has a remarkable ability to weather scandals that would destroy politicians in healthier democracies. They circle the wagons, they wait for public attention to move on, and then they continue as before. But maybe this time will be different. Maybe the sheer scale of the corruption, the clear evidence of abuse, the obvious betrayal of public trust will be too much to ignore. What we need now is sustained pressure. We need journalists to keep digging. We need parliamentarians to ask tough questions. We need the public to demand accountability. Most importantly, we need to remember this story when these same politicians come asking for our votes in future elections. The Boris files reveal something we suspected but couldn't prove, that the British political system is fundamentally corrupted by money and influence. Former prime ministers aren't public servants winding down their careers in dignified retirement. They're entrepreneurs monetizing their government connections for massive personal profit. This isn't just Boris Johnson's scandal. This is Britain's scandal. This is democracy's scandal. And until we fix the underlying system that makes this corruption possible, we'll keep seeing the same abuses over and over again. So here's what I want you to do. Share this video with everyone you know. Make sure people understand what's really happening. Hold your representatives accountable. Demand transparency and accountability from everyone in public life. If you believe in independent journalism that exposes corruption like this, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and consider becoming a sponsor. Because this is the kind of story the establishment doesn't want you to hear, and we need your support to keep telling it. The truth matters, accountability matters, and your voice matters in making sure corruption like this never goes unpunished.